Hi everyone, my name is Lydia Carlson, and today we're going to be talking about the Congress of Vienna. So to understand the Congress of Vienna, you really have to look at everything that happened before and everything that happened after. So this is kind of a really quick rundown just so we can kind of get our heads in the right spot. So we have the French Revolution, then we have the Napoleonic Wars, then right after Napoleon gets exiled, all of these nobles come together at the Congress of Vienna to try to figure out what they're going to do with Europe and what they're going to do with kind of the chaotic state that Napoleon left Europe in. So their plan is to reinstate borders, pretty much similar, which we'll see later on a map. They pretty much ended up being really similar to what they were before Napoleonic Wars. And it is also important to note that the first half of this, there wasn't really a lot going on. But then Napoleon escaped his exile from Elba, and then they were like, okay, guys, we got to get things going. And then they finally started talking about things, discussing things. A lot of the things they discussed were border situations, yeah. So now we're going to go all the way back to the Treaty of Paris. So 1783 is whenever the Treaty of Paris was put into place. This treaty ended the war. This ended the American Revolution. This was whenever England finally recognized the United States' independence and kind of saw them as a real country and not just a breakaway from England. And this treaty really influenced a lot of European countries into wanting this independence and wanting this freedom. So the treaty states, "No person shall on that account suffer any future loss or damage either in his person, liberty, or property, and that those who may be in confinement on such charges at the time of the ratification of the treaty in America shall be immediately set at liberty, and the prosecution so commenced be discontinued." So this is kind of basically just saying that all these people that were doing all these wrongdoings against England and against Great Britain, no, just England, against England, they are free of all their charges. They're not going to get charged for anything that they were doing against England in order to get this independence in the United States. So all of these countries were seeing this. They were really influenced by this, and they were saying, okay, these people aren't even getting in trouble for trying to start this, well, because they accomplished it. They aren't getting in trouble because they accomplished the freedom. This is really something huge that's going to put a really big impact on all these people, especially in France, which is what leads to the French Revolution. So I don't want to go too far into everything because everyone else has to do videos on these too, but the French Revolution, like I just said, was very, very influenced by the Treaty of Paris. So they are seeing this, and then they're also looking at their lifestyle and their state of living, and they're like, all right, we got to do something about this. So all of these lower class citizens are trying to get something done and trying to live a better life. So the French were influenced by the American Revolution, and then the quote that I have for this, it is a later quote, but I still think it kind of captures the influence that America had on all of Europe. So England is obviously disturbed about the news from America, and speculators in every country are greatly alarmed. So people are paying attention. It's not just like, oh, something's happening over there. No, everyone in Europe is paying attention to what is going on. And they're wanting something to change. And so we have the French Revolution, someone else's video, I'm not going into that. And then this leads to the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte because of all the chaos that the French Revolution led to. Okay, so first, please forgive me for having my face on top of the words. I cannot figure out how to move it, so we're just gonna tell you what it says. So Napoleon Bonaparte, he fought for revolution all over Europe. He wanted something to change. This is kind of why he was really supported by the lower class citizens. And I say kind of because this is really messy. He wasn't liked by monarchs because he was trying to reform all these countries. Basically, he was just going into all these different countries and changing all of their normal lifestyle, all their government, everything like that. The people might have liked it because they had more freedoms. It was seen to be more freedoms. There was more religious freedoms, more voting freedoms, all that type of stuff. But the people who were on the front lines for the monarchs, fighting for the monarchs, were these lower class citizens. So even though he really was kind of helping them, he was still killing a whole bunch of them. So it's kind of it's a little bit messy. The part that my head is covering up, it basically just says that he's exiled after his attempt to take over Russia, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. Okay, so at this point in European history, Napoleon has a really big impact on all of these countries that are outlined in red. So you can kind of see on the key up here, I know it's a little small, so I will cover it. So this area here, I'm circling right now, this is what France started out as. This was this area, that's what Napoleon started out with. And then in 1804, it says up here, French territorial acquisitions after 1804. So these lighter purple areas, all over this one, over here. So these are all the newly acquired land. And then as time goes on, states dependent on Napoleon. So we've got Spain and all these other blue areas over here. So these are all dependent on him, that he's come in there and he's kind of dependent is a nice way to put it, I guess I would say. The other areas that aren't those that are within the red border, those are the countries and states that were they kind of just were like, we surrender, we'll be your ally. Don't come in here, don't talk to us. We'll be your buddy, don't worry, we got you. So at this point, he's ready to go invade Russia. He's got over 600,000 army men behind him. He has all of these countries that are bordered in red, and he thinks he's gonna invade Russia and do something great. But it doesn't go very well, because then it is wintertime in Russia, and that does not fare well for all of these people that are going in. So a bunch of people end up dying, which is one of the main reasons. I mean, prior to this, a bunch of people have already died, but this is kind of the last straw with Napoleon. They're like, you have killed so many people, we're done with you, you got to get out of here. So this is when they send him to Elba, is his failure to capture Russia, his failure with the Russian conquest. All right, so Napoleon is now exiled. So he's exiled twice, but this is the map of both of them. We'll talk about his second exile in a little bit. So his first exile is in Elba, which is right outside of Italy. It's pretty close. Second time, they were like, we don't want you anywhere near us. So they send him out. This is Africa right here. He's really far away. He's not coming back. They do not want him to come back and try to do anything. So after he's exiled to Elba, he comes back, which is why they have to exile him again. And he's defeated at the Battle of Waterloo. All right, so let's go back to when Napoleon was first exiled to Elba. So this is kind of when the Congress of Vienna was starting. They were deciding they need to get Europe back in order. They want to reinstate the monarchies. They're trying to get things done. But these are the quotes that I found to kind of explain to you what was going on. So, and also this is a hard word, so you gotta bear with me. As the plenipotentiaries were assembling in Vienna, however, the course of events seemed by no means this clear. So this is just saying, basically, they're just kind of being like, what do we do now? What's going on? What are we supposed to do? They weren't really doing much. And then this is kind of whenever they were gossiping. Unfortunately, you can't see both eyeballs. That's really sad, but it's okay. So my second quote, there is a general restlessness of public opinion, and one does not foresee how the government will succeed in the quieting of clamor of 30,000 officers dismissed without pay. The Duke of Wellington is very unpopular there. I think he will be obliged to return home. So this is from letters written by Princess Levin to her brother, General Alexander Beckendorf. So this is kind of a good example of the gossip that's going on. It's not just happening in Vienna, but the people that are in Vienna are writing people in other countries, and everyone kind of is just figuring out what's going on by just like little side comments and stuff like this. So, again, not much was really happening until Napoleon escaped exile from Elba, and that's whenever things kind of get the ball rolling. Things kind of start after Napoleon comes back, and then he's defeated at the Battle of Waterloo. They're like, okay, we should probably do something now. Okay, so at this point, Napoleon is over on an island by Africa. He's far away. All these countries, they're like, okay, we should probably do something now. We should probably stop just gossiping to each other. So the four main countries involved were Austria, France, Prussia, and Russia. Countries / empires involved. United Kingdom was there as well. They were an outer influence, but really the land battle and stuff like that was all mostly impacted by these four countries. So the four influential leaders from these countries, Austria, France, Prussia, and Russia. So we've got Clemens von Metternich. He is the first picture on the top left. He's from Austria, and his goal was to preserve a conservative order and prevent more revolutions. So if you remember back, we talked about conservatives and liberals. Clemens von Metternich was a conservative. He wanted to keep these monarch values, and he wanted to keep monarchies in place. So this is really what he was pushing for during the Congress. Next up, we have Charles Maurice de Talleyrand, and he was not really a conservative. He was more of the liberal side, and he was wanting, well, remember, he's from France. So this is post-French Revolution. They're wanting change. They want people to have a more open mindset to lower class citizens, but also he understands the necessity for his group of people to keep the monarchies in place. So he skillfully kept France in play after the revolution and the reign of Napoleon. So I was thinking about this before I started recording this, and I kind of was just comparing it in my head to Germany after World War II, how they kind of were like, okay, you guys need to hang out over there, stop talking, we're not going to let you be involved. Like, chill out. You're not going to touch anything. Please stop. So this is kind of my thoughts, is that he kind of stopped that from happening to France. That's just how I'm perceiving it. But I feel like that's a pretty good representation of what was happening. He was their leaderhead for France. He kind of was doing all of this important work for France, so they didn't just get swept under the rug. And then from Prussia, he is in the bottom left. We've got Karl August von Hardenberg. He's important in shaping the German Confederation, which goes hand in hand with Tsar Alexander. So they were kind of fighting back and forth on the Prussian borderline. So Prussia kind of gets pretty frustrated because they're going to have to give up land to Russia, and they're not very happy with it. So this is kind of one of the main tiffs, is that Prussia didn't really want to give up land to Russia. Okay, so now we're going to talk about really the main outcome of the Congress of Vienna was the borders and the maps. So this is post-revolution, pre-Napoleon. So Napoleon, post-revolution France, was just the French border that we saw earlier. To me, it kind of looks like a glove, like this. That's a really good drawing. I hope you guys like it. So they have all of this land here, but they don't really end up with that later. So it's important to notice that these French borders are going to be different, and then also the Prussian borders are going to be different. So we have our Prussia is over here. This is the border there. So we will, on the next slide, kind of look at how it's different. Okay, so this is the same map that we looked at earlier with Napoleon's impact. So we have France here, the mitten-looking France right here, and then we have this whole area outlined in red that is impacted by France. The purpley blue colors are the ones that are taken over by France. So it's important to note that all of this land is going to be changed. It's all going to be impacted by what the Congress of Vienna basically does. All right, and this is the map post-Congress of Vienna. So France is no longer a mitten, and they have lost Piedmont, and then they also lost, it's kind of hard to see, but I'll try to outline it here. France went kind of, oh no, that's not right. Boop, like that. They kind of had all this area that I've outlined, and then they had Piedmont. So it looked more like that, but now they've lost quite a bit of land. And then it's also important to compare over in this area, because the Prussian land kind of changes a little bit as well. So this map shows the same time period, but just a little bit differently. So you can see France, and then we have the outline of the German Confederation right here. So this was 1815, and then this was kind of how the map was for quite some time. This is where we go into the concert of Europe. The 100 years where there's no war in Europe, which is going to be someone else's topic to cover. So I'm going to try to not go into it very much. But all of these countries had this first big group meeting, very long meeting, but they had this coming together, and so all of these new relationships were kind of forming through the Congress of Vienna, which really impacted and helped shape the concert of Europe. Okay, so the impacts today. Not only did the Congress of Vienna kind of bring together Europe, it also brought together other continents. So the quote states, "For American foreign policy today, the lesson here is to establish a clear hierarchy of U.S. priorities, both within international order and within each region of the world." So this is important to note that not only was Europe being impacted by this togetherness, this idea of togetherness, but America was too. They're far away, but they're still impacted by this. I would say that the best way to understand the impact is just to look at kind of the new organizations, the international organizations. So NATO we have now, the International Criminal Police Organization, World Health Organization, International Telecommunication Union, World Bank, International Monetary Fund. So all of these new international, intercontinental groups, they really got their ideas and their spark to do this from the Congress of Vienna. There weren't any meetings like this that were international meetings of multiple countries coming together to try to solve something until the Congress of Vienna. So it really has made a huge impact, especially, we talk about NATO all the time, World Health Organization all the time. This is stuff that we still see today, hundreds of years later. And it is this idea of countries coming together isn't something that just diminished after this. It made a huge impact, and we still see stuff like this today. So I think that pretty much concludes what I needed to say on this. Please let me know if you have more questions. I feel like an expert now, so all right. Thanks, guys. Have a good day. Oh, here are my sources if anyone feels so obliged to go through and make sure I said everything right.